one has to try to reach out to people of different cultures, because the world around us consists of people from many different cultures. And increasingly people identify themselves not narrowly with one culture. So that there is simply a pragmatic question. And I think that if you do not address this question of the meeting of many cultures, you're not going to survive in the modern world, because all those cultures are meeting, and you need to be able to address them all and to have some response to the question of many cultures coming together.
I'm originally from Australia, and I met the FWBO in Australia about 8 years ago. And just a sec. Good morning, London Buddhist Centre.
I think around the LBC there is a depth of experience that we've built up, and it's probably the most developed centre in terms of team-based right livelihood. Lots of new initiatives have happened from the London Buddhist Centre. So I think we've got that to offer.
A quarter of the population of London, it's 7.5 million, a quarter are non-white and non-European. Among that, there are about 132 languages spoken here. A third of the children who've been born in this city in the last 3 years are of mixed race, or black or Asian. So what's being born and created here is something incredibly rich, racially and culturally.
London is an international city, really full of people from all over the world. So, yeah, it's definitely got the potential to appeal to a large group of people.
Hello, I'm Manjudaka from Finland, and I'm making a hole in the ice. For me, the movement is international in a very self-evident way. If it was not international, well, there just wouldn't be any movement in Finland.
Finns are brave. They do communicate really openly and deeply once they have come to trust you.
Finns have simplicity as an ideal of beauty still quite close to their hearts.
People are quite strong meditators. People like to meditate a lot.
For instance, Finnish shrines are often quite simple and, from my point of view, quite elegant.
People like to study the Dharma. Not so much to discuss in groups, but to have teachings and to go home and think for themselves.
We have a rather sort of organic attitude to ritual, for instance. The way we do rituals is still quite closely connected to a relationship with nature.
Silence comes to most Finns quite naturally.
Joo, en mä osaa paljon muuta tähän hätään sanoa. Lähetän terveisiä kaikille ja toivon, että kaikki elävät olennot olisi onnellisia. Hei!
I think there's also a direct personal spiritual value to the individual in trying to address the multicultural issue. After all, we're so conditioned by our own background. We're conditioned on many, many different levels. We're conditioned simply by the fact that we're human beings, for a start. We look at things from a particular point of view because we're human beings. At the moment we're not much challenged on that front unless we're visionaries of some kind. But yes, we are limited in a certain sense, or determined in a certain sense, by the fact that we're human beings, and we're human beings of a particular genetic, biological makeup. Then and that includes, of course, our masculinity or femininity, or maleness and femaleness. Then we're determined by the nation and culture within which we're born. And even there's a question of the class from which we come and the nature of the family from which we come. So all of that has a strong determining effect upon us. And what we tend to do is to assume that what we are is the norm, and that what we are is what really is. And we don't even really see what we are. We don't really realise that, well, we're more than all of those things. We are those things, but we're more than all of those things. We're more than a human being. We're more than a man or a woman. We're more than a middle class or a working class person. We're more than a black person or a white person. We're more than all those things, although we are those things. We cannot but be specific. So how do we realise what we are, and how do we go beyond what we are? Well, of course, the whole practice of Buddhism is aimed at that. But I think there's an especially powerful practice, if you like, available to us, which is coming into contact with people from different cultures. Because then you're up against the fact of who you are by virtue of being in contact with others. Actually, of course, this happens as soon as we meet another person, because immediately that other person effectively comes from another culture to us. And the effort to communicate with them forces us, or encourages us, to transcend ourselves. But the more unlike us they are, whether temperamentally or especially culturally, the more we are encouraged to transcend ourselves.